Jeff Salzman here with Ankur Delight. Hey, Ankur, man, how you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic. I'm fantastic. I mean, we start recording after I get to connect with you for like
I
10
know.
minutes. So of course I'm going to be fantastic when we hit record.
Well, bless your heart. We're actually talking about the ironic and unironic aspects of that saying and how they're intertwined, and we both like it.
Yeah, and maybe it's worth recapping a little bit.
Yeah.
What I love about it is that even when people say it about someone they're annoyed by or they want to criticize, they're still saying, on this literal level, there's things like talking about blessing and they're acknowledging that the person has a heart.
Yeah.
Which is always true, except maybe in Dick Cheney's case. But you can say like bless their robot heart is.
Yeah. Well, in his case, yeah. Bless somebody's heart who's beating in his chest for the last, long time. He's had that heart transplant. Anyway. So today we're going to talk about sort of the same topic, and that's bogeymen.
Yeah.
Right. We touched on it. And the idea of why are human beings always othering each other, and some headlines that we might have seen that illustrate some aspect of this.
Yeah.
So you have anything?
Yeah. So yeah, I do have a few, and I just took some notes over the week. So I'm just going to look at them right now. Here's one. Greek Coast Guard is under scrutiny for response to migrant mass drowning. And I'm just imagining the different sides in this. Of course, in Southern Europe, there's this whole like migration from North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa is a big topic. A lot of illegal migration, a lot of people dying trying to migrate. It's like there's a lot of tragedy there. And so there's whole sectors of these populations that are like, the migrants are the boogeyman. Is that what? Boogie or bogey? Bogey.
Yeah. I always said boogeyman, but I think
whatever.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, like the activist communities, like my father-in-law, who's just been an activist his entire life. He was kicked out by the dictator of Tunisia when he was a adolescent, and has been fighting for democracy in North Africa and for, I guess, more like humanism in Europe. He's definitely going to see the Greek Coast Guard as the bogeyman here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's one. And then I read a couple things about Ron DeSantis and some of the policies. There's just like bogeyman all over that. Like he sees a lot of people as the bogeyman, and then a lot of people see him as the bogeyman.
Yeah.
And then Bernie, whose list I'm on, and I love Bernie, as I talked about because of his honesty and dedication and hair. But he really sees like every email. It's like the pharmaceutical people are evil, the banking people are evil, billionaires are evil. There's a lot of bogeyman rhetoric.
Yeah.
So my question to you, and maybe it's also a question to our old friend Joseph Campbell, is in this evolutionary process of expanding the self, expanding the notion of community from my family to my tribe to this nation state of people that speak the same language to now people that don't even like look like us, people who agree with us or don't. There's always this othering, always this bogeyman so far in human history. And is it possible? Like, do we need that? Is there something fundamental about the way that we construct identity and meaning that we need that? Or is in this integral future, is it possible that we're going to have a sense of meaning and community without that? Like, is that a necessary abstraction for us?
Yeah.
Or our cohesion?
Yeah. Such a good question. And, there is theory around that.
Okay.
Integral does have some theoretical,
Dude, hit me up with some theory, Jeff.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. Well, apparently, when God was creating the universe, how's that?
Right. Start at the beginning of the theory. Here we go.
But we can observe, with or without God, that evolution is based on conflict. Partly, it's based on competition, survival of the fittest. You get in the arena with another amoeba, and see who wins, basically. And that is just the physics. That's the structure of evolution. And I question the wisdom of that, but nevertheless, it seems to be built in. And so I talk about it as fighting and friending. And so, fighting is part of it. Also friending, sex, joining up, making, first of all, cells, making organisms, making, the whole evolutionary process to humanity. Very much a part of all of that is loving each other, being in each other's hair, having sex, making kids, making cultures, making all. So both of those things are deep structures of the human psyche. And here's where the integral theory comes in, is that the first 6 stages of human evolution, which is sort of the indigenous and then the tribal, then the traditional, modern, postmodern, each of those is based on some idea that things went wrong for humanity, that we were in paradise, but we fell from paradise. We're being punished in some way, fall from God, Garden of Eden, even Gaia in the whole postmodern religion of environmentalism, which is not to say that it's a bad thing, but it's based on something that we did wrong. The idea is that we can move, as we move into the integral system and we begin to see not just the world, we're not just world-centric, we're cosmos-centric, in the sense that we're actually feeling and seeing evolution itself, seeing the utility and the fruits of fighting, normalizing it, not saying this shouldn't be happening, it's awful that it is, I can't stand it, this is why, this is what we have to do to be redeemed. That's humanity so far. In the next stage, we move into a creativity operating system from a fear operating system or a love operating system, where we're conscious of the whole game, the evolutionary game, and we become friendly with it. And that is, I think we can do that. I can even think we can do that day to day as integral practitioners and see these headlines and see, okay, there we go again. We're in the arena. We're supposed to be in the arena. This is how the arena is showing up at this stage of human development. Thank God it's not the way it was 100 years ago or 200 years ago, where it was far more lethal, far more bloody, far more people dying at sea. For people dying at sea, it's as bad as it ever was. But we can also note that is these hot spots of basically, earlier stage development where you're just literally trying to survive are still happening. People are doing wars just like they always did. But there's also 7 billion people who are living decent lives. And that's worth noting.
Yeah. Okay.
So, we're always taking that bigger picture and seeing that this, we don't want to be in opposition to reality. We don't want to be looking at everybody who's fighting. The headline I bring to the table is, where is it? Marjorie Taylor Greene calls Lauren Boebert a little bitch.
Okay. That's way better than mine.
That was on the floor of the House of Representatives.
Really?
I guess. I mean, I just read it. I don't know. See, that's the other thing about the media verses. I'm not entirely sure that happened, but it might have happened. And at any rate, that it's even a headline somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just, you can feel the hook.
No, yeah.
Oh, she called her a little bitch. It's like, oh, there's a fight behind the school. Let's go. You know,
everybody go. Yeah.
That's a deep wiring, Ankur. Yeah. And we can get hip to that, actually see that we want to fight, but we can fight in a way that tickles, rather than hurts. And that's the project of the next stage, I think.
So I want to bring a lens of meditation and my marriage to what you just said to make it a little more concrete. So one of the ways I understood what you said is about the difference between being in something like a conflict or a drama and just witnessing it.
Yeah.
And so with meditation, I've experienced this both with pain in my own body, where I'm like, oh, that's really painful, da 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 da. And then you get this like witness effect. And then you're like, oh, that body is experiencing sensation. How interesting. And I can see it. I've had glimpses of that in my marriage, where sometimes you're in the middle of a conflict and you're like, God damn, why are you being this way? And then you can kind of zoom out and be like, oh, what we're doing right now is actually healthy and constructive for the future of our relationship, if we can do it well.
Yes.
And so the goal is to feel that way and to understand that perspective when we're having this social antagonism around gun control or reproductive rights or whatever it is.
Absolutely. And meditation is the calisthenics of that, in the sense that meditation is basically just about, okay, notice that you're thinking, and then notice that you're thinking from a bigger space. You have an observer that's watching the movie of your mind that's always doing its thing. And then sometimes you're identified with it and you're contracted around it and it's you and you're out there. And then you can, with meditation, you just get practice at, oh, okay, now I can see it from the bigger me, basically, a bigger self. And that's part of why when we move into an integral space, and the integral space is basically a more stable realization of that. Okay. And part of why it's less conflictual and less fear-oriented is that we have literally become identified with the part of us that can't be hurt and can't die. With absolute reality, the reality within which time and space arises. And that's good. That's like people who come back from near-death experiences. It's like they've been there, they've seen that. They're not afraid anymore. That's a big theme of the story of NDEs. And this meditation is practice at that. When we're contracted around some sort of opposition, that really comes in handy. Sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't. But at least I can notice what I can't. And that's good. It's better than just can't.
Yeah. Any building of awareness along that path is just very, very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just to summarize, and I really appreciate this, because this is often the case, is that my desires are just too simplistic. And so like the way I'd want things to unfold is that we grow the self and the notion of inclusion and community. So there's no bogeyman or boogeyman. But what you're saying, what I'm learning from you right now, is that it's not that the bogeyman goes away, it's that we just stop taking it so seriously.
Yeah, that's right.
And we see the role, like, oh, when is it constructive? Like, oh, okay, how is this bogeyman and how is my feeling towards it helping us go through the conflict? And then, maybe there's times where it's just, okay, it's a little excessive and it's not.
Right. And there's no real solid place to stand there in a sense. It's like every stage of development, the three big ones that are on stage online right now, the God and country traditionalists, the secular, let's make the trains run on time, scientific modernists, the woke, sensitive postmodernists. All of those have a story about what we need to do is everybody just become like me. Basically.
Yeah.
See it the way
things would work a lot better if you were just like me.
Exactly. And that's the goal that's their goal. I was watching a video with Sam Harris, who I have enormous respect for, and I really enjoy listening to him. And he's a materialist. He's in that sort of orange, so he's fighting both the left and the right. And his thing is, we need social systems that we can trust. We have to get back to trusting our systems. Well, first of all, we never trusted our systems. There were people who, that's not possible. What is possible is that we have an arena where left and right are in there. So are the scientists and secularists. We've given up this idea that there's a really solid place to stand, and we flow with the evolution itself, and that we trust that process of fighting and friending will take us to a better place, because it always has. And that's the trend of humanity. Only this time we're integrating all the stuff we've left behind, like magic, myth, the pre-rational. Rational's in there too. We got to have rational. We want sensitivity. We want them all. And that's possible when you have this bigger structure of consciousness that sees worldviews arising instead of is contracted around and accommodates them and appreciates them, and see how each of them has this, this story that, once we get everybody postmodern, modern, traditional, then we'll be fine. It's an exhausting story, but it's ever been often told.
Yeah. The image I have in my mind is some kind of wedding planner who's tasked with, there's like all these hundreds of people and they got to sit around these round tables, and the wedding planner is not doesn't have control over who gets invited to the wedding, but the responsibility is oh, where would it be great for you to sit? Right. What is your role in this party?
Yes.
Trusting that everyone has a role at the party.
Yes. That's right. And just have an assumption that people are coming from good faith, because they are. I mean, there's some bad faith actors, and we need to identify them. And basically, from a developmental point of view, so that would be the stage earlier than traditionalism, the warrior stage, in a sense, is the bad faith actor, in the sense that they're coming from like Trump would be a perfect example, just coming from an egocentric. So he'll use any of the, laws or whatever, to just further his own ends, which is red, which is his, So
and what's the
there's
idea?
Always
there?
those people. You got to keep them in mind too, and also in a way befriend them. But go on, what were you going to say, Trump?
Yeah. So what's the idea with someone at Red who's not a good faith actor in this system that we've created? Is it that they just don't get the system? They're not developmentally at the point where they understand that coherence and what's the deal?
It's fun. We talk about lines of development. So people can be at a higher level in terms of intellectual. They can be in terms of interpersonal, spiritual. There's several big lines of development that we can talk about. But then there's this one called the self sense. It's just, where's your heart? So we can have somebody like Trump. They've been to, an Ivy League school. They've built a building off of Central Park, a skyscraper. I mean, this guy knows what he's doing. He works the laws, so he understands that. Also in the middle of Manhattan, he could do all the parties and galas, and he was anti-abortion. And he was, he could play even a green sort of progressive role when it suited him. But where he was coming from was from the lesson that his father always taught him, or at least the one that he heard. And that is, you got to be a killer. Everybody's against you. And that's Red, basically. Red gets up in the morning and fights. They fight their enemies. They fight their friends. They stiff people when they can. That was Trump. They use the laws. They sue other people. They're perpetually a victim and a perpetrator, in a way. That's how they see themselves. So it's just, that's a level. We can feel that level. Mm-hmm. It's almost being like a 2-year-old. You're just buffeted by your own needs. And there's a term for it. It's called psychopathic disorder or empathy disorder, and that is a thing that people have, often very public, people have that because you couldn't survive without it, in a way. If you think of Trump and all of the consternation he causes, you think he has great antenna for sensitivity? No. And in fact, that disorder, if you will, it's on a certain spectrum. They don't respond to criticism. And that's true of red. They like it. They just like attention. Attention itself is the currency. Trump loves being on the front cover of all the magazines again. That's how he's gone from being in the rearview mirror to bestriding the political scene again. But red, so you got to watch red. But they're a small minority now. It used to be, a lot more, and everybody else is operating from basically good faith. So.
Helpful, instructive, illuminating. I mean, every time I talk to you, I just feel it's like the garden of compassion inside me is watered.
Yeah, that's right. And you can have compassion and actually even respect for people. Elon Musk has a streak of this. He just has access to his red. Let's just put it that way. And it's funny, every stage of development wants to repress the previous stage because they've had a belly full of it. They got it.
Yeah, totally.
So traditionalism wants to, civilize people and have everybody sit in a row and start memorizing the scriptures and that sort of thing, instead of getting out there and with a sword and, fighting all the time. And so that has become more and more repressed. Physical violence is at a vanishing point, considering human history. Modernity, traditionalism starts to civilize in a way, and then modernity more so, post-modernity even more so, even though they all have their sort of violent streaks. But red, that's where they live. And so, we don't have Trump and Elon and other people. And I'm a fan of Elon. So I don't say that I'm not condemning him. But they're not going to do it with physical violence, but they have a willingness to just say whatever the fuck they think, and that is, and they'll like, and maybe we're getting off subject here because this turns into a sort of a Trump show, but Trump and Elon both are willing to hurt other people to their ends. That's a bright line for a lot of other people, that you really don't want to hurt other people, and red's willing to. So you got to keep an eye on them. But otherwise, they can be, get a lot of stuff done because in some ways the spectrum they're on makes them, gives them a little shark-like quality. They can go places. So boogeyman, opponents, yeah, it's built in, man. We can be friendly to it as we watch it, and from an integral perspective, bless their hearts.
Yeah.
Everybody, they're doing in some ways the best they can. They all have hearts. They all need blessings. It gets back to our original inspiration here.
Yeah, perfect. It's part of it. It's just part of it. It can be constructive if we, with our attitude.
Yeah. And then we want to accentuate the friending part. One of the things that we can do at Integral that is not done in any previous stage is that we can befriend the other stages.
Mm-hmm.
In the first stages, they hate each other. At Integral, we don't hate any of them.
Yeah.
In fact, we're welcome them home, so that we can start to integrate the best of humanity. And we have no idea what our grandchildren are going to be like. Not to mention our great-grandchildren. Just amazing. It's going to be amazing.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Ankur. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, folks, for listening. This is Jeff Salzman signing off. See you at the next Daily Evolver.